Venerable Sir, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, we are very fortunate to have been able to invite Longpo Dhammavuddho Mahathera to give us a Dhamma talk here today in SJBA. The title of today's talk is Laypersons Certainly Can Become Ariya, a topic which is of interest to many lay people who aspire to be liberated from dukkha. Longpo Dhammavuddho Mahathera graduated from University Malaya in 1971 and worked as an electrical engineer with the Public Works Department for 12 years before renouncing the home life. He was the founder of the Vihara Buddha Gautama and is a monastic advisor to the Theravada Buddhist Council of Malaysia. He has written numerous booklets on Buddhism. For example, Return to the Original Buddha's Teaching, Message of the Buddha, Buddhist Monks' Precepts, Liberation, Relevance of Sutta Vinaya, Only We Can Help Ourselves, etc. Let's fold our palms together and invite Longpo Dhammavuddho Mahathera to give us the talk.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Good evening, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. A few weeks ago, when I discussed with Brother Chim about having a talk here, he said it would be good if I give a talk that is inspiring to lay people. He said many have been practicing Buddhism for many years, and they don't seem to improve, don't seem to have attained some special state. So some people are disheartened. So I suggested this talk. Laypersons certainly can become Ariya. So hope you will take this to heart. And tonight's talk will be inspired to practice in the right way to become an Ariya. It is very important to practice the right way. There are many people who come into religion and they like to pray for this, pray for that. Because why? They don't know the true Dhamma. The true Dhamma is in the suttas. In one of the suttas in the Anguttara Nikaya 4.180, the Buddha said, if any monk says that the Buddha taught like this and the Buddha taught like that, you should not accept, you should not reject, but must compare with the suttas. And for the monastics, the Vinaya. So unless you are familiar with the suttas, there are a lot of wrong teachings around. And you might practice for many years. In the end, you get nothing. So the Buddha said in the Anguttara Nikaya 5.43 that there are several things in life everybody wants. You want to have a good life, you want to have a long life, you want to have a happy life, and after passing away, you want to go to heaven. Everybody wants, isn't it? The Buddha said, you will never get by praying, you'll never get by crying for it, by making vows, etc. The Buddha said you have to do the right thing. And what is the right thing? You can only get the answer from the suttas. So the Buddha, to make you understand, the Buddha gave some examples, some analogies. The Buddha said, suppose a man wanted oil. So he took sesame seeds, chi ma, mua chi, and he ground them. And then he will naturally get oil. Whether he prays for it or he does not pray for it, he will get oil. Yeah? But maybe somebody looking from far thought the sesame seeds looked like sand. So he also wanted to get oil. He took sand and started to grind the sand. So when he did not get oil, he started to pray, started to cry, plead. Would he get oil? He never get oil. In the same way, the Buddha said, somebody wants to get butter. So he gets milk and he churns the milk. Keep churning the milk. Slowly it thickens and turns to butter. Does not have to pray for it. Does not have to plead and make vows, etc. It will come naturally because he's doing the right thing. But another ignorant person, he takes water and he churns the water. Even after 1 year, 10 years, 100 years, he'll never get water. Even he prays to heaven and all that, he'll never get butter because he's doing the wrong thing. So it's very important to do the right thing. Nowadays, there's a lot of wrong views. For example, they like to say 84,000 Dharma doors. The Buddha never said that. The Buddha said there's only one door, one path out of suffering that is called the Aryan Eightfold Path. So tonight's talk, like most of my talks, are based on the suttas, the original discourses of the Buddha found in the early 5 Nikayas. In the Anguttara Nikaya 9.9, the Buddha said there are only 9 types of persons in the world. These 9 types of persons, first is the Putujana, ordinary worldling, who keeps going on the round of rebirths, births and deaths endlessly, and will never get out of it unless he becomes an Ariya. The other 8 persons out of these 9 are the Aryans. First path, first fruit. Higher than that is second path, second fruit, third path, third fruit, and fourth path, fourth fruit. Only the fourth fruit person is enlightened, fully enlightened, and it's also called an Arahant. An Arahant is one who has gotten out of the round of rebirths. So the others from the first path to the fourth path, these 7 are partly liberated. Partly liberated. They are called Seka. Aryans who are still on training, have not become fully enlightened. So in the Samyutta Nikaya 25.1, it is said that when a person attains the first path, in the same lifetime, it turns to fruit. When his wisdom matures, the path will turn to fruit. So it is probable that it is the same for the others. Second path will turn to fruit in the same lifetime. Third path will turn to third fruit in the same lifetime, and fourth path will turn to fourth fruit. Now in the Abhidhamma, later books like the Abhidhamma, they say that when you attain the path, immediately the next conscious moment it becomes fruit. This contradicts the suttas, because if a person has attained the path and the next moment it becomes fruit, then there is no chance for you to do dana, offering to a path attainer, because before you can give him something, he has already turned to become a fruit attainer. But in the Dakkhina Vibhanga Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 142, it is said that you can make offerings to path attainers and to fruit attainers. That's why you can see there are contradictions between the suttas and the later books like the Abhidhamma, commentaries, etc. That's why the Buddha said, if any monk teaches and claims that it is the Buddha's teachings, always compare it with the suttas. So, if you don't become an Ariya, you will continue to be a Putujana, an ordinary worldling. And you will continue on the round of rebirths endlessly, because time has no end, the Buddha said. So, what's wrong with being a Putujana? If you're reborn in heaven or you're reborn as a human being, it's not bad. Samsara is okay. But the problem is, the Buddha says there are 5 destinations of rebirth. 2 happy destinations, namely heaven and human, and 3 woeful destinations, planes of suffering, ghost realm, animal realm, and hell realm. And the problem is, the Buddha says, most of the time, a being in samsara will be reborn in the 3 woeful planes more often than in the 2 happy destinations of rebirth. If you are born in the 3 woeful planes, it's a lot of suffering. Even the ghost realm is a lot of suffering, because ghosts, they're hungry most of the time. They wander around at night looking for food, nothing to eat. They have to eat the dead lizard, the dead frog, the dead chicken, and they are so hungry, nothing to eat, they have to eat shit. Sometimes you go to an old hotel, you stay in an old hotel, and you go to the toilet, all your hair stand up. So, samsara is painful because of rebirth in these 3 woeful planes. And a Putujana will experience this. But once you become an Ariya, the Buddha said you will never be reborn in the 3 woeful planes. you only come back as a human being or go to heaven. So that's why it's important to become an Ariya. Otherwise, life is really suffering. As a human being, life is good. Yeah. So a lot of people don't understand when they hear the Buddha said, life is suffering. They say, how can? I'm having a good life. I'm living the American dream. How can you say life is suffering? Yeah. The Buddha didn't mean that human life is suffering. The Buddha meant that if you are in samsara, most of the time you'll be reborn as a ghost or animal or go to hell. That's why the Buddha says samsara is suffering. Now, how to become an Ariya and escape the three woeful realms of rebirth? The Buddha said in the Digha Nikaya Sutta number 16, Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the Buddha said, where the Aryan Eightfold Path is found, only there you can find Aryans. Where the Aryan Eightfold Path is not found, you can never find Aryans. So in other words, the Aryan Eightfold Path is the only path out of suffering. So if you don't understand this, you will believe later teachings like they talk about 84,000 Dharma doors, and you will be barking up the wrong tree, wasting your whole life. This has happened to many people. So it's very important to know that only if you practice the Aryan Eightfold Path, you can become an Ariya. Now, how to practice the Aryan Eightfold Path is explained in Majjhima Nikaya 117, Mahachattarisaka Sutta. In that sutta, the Buddha said, to practice the Aryan Eightfold Path, the 8 factors of the Aryan Eightfold Path, Masti Ada System, MAS, and that is to enter by right view. There's only one door to enter the Aryan Eightfold Path, that is right view. And right view will bring you to the second factor, right thoughts. And then that will bring you to right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So the Aryan Eightfold Path must be practiced in that order. If you don't practice it in that order, you'll never become an Ariya. So why must we get right view first? Because once you have right view, you have become an Ariya. In the Anguttara Nikaya 9.20, the Buddha said long time ago he was born as a Brahmin called Velama. He was a very rich Brahmin and he did so much charity that a lot of people benefited. But in spite of that, he said the merit was more if he had given to one person with right view. So it means that one person with right view is an Ariya. So at that time, because there was no Dhamma in the world, you could not find even a single Ariya. So all that charity cannot compare just to giving food to just one Ariya, even the lowest Ariya. So the condition to become an Ariya is to have right view. Once you have right view, you have entered the Aryan Eightfold Path, and you are called, you have attained stream entry. In the suttas, the Buddha said, when you say stream entry, the stream refers to the Aryan Eightfold Path. Now, when you practice the Aryan Eightfold Path, you will attain the different levels of Aryahood. And the Aryan Eightfold Path can also be considered, the 8 factors of the Aryan Eightfold Path can also be considered to be 3 factors, namely Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Sila is moral conduct, Samadhi is concentration, and Panya is wisdom. So it is said in the Anguttara Nikaya 3.86 that the first and the second fruit attainer, the Sotapanna and the Sakadagamin, they have perfect Sila. The Anagamin, third fruition Ariya, has perfect Sila and Samadhi. And the Arahant, fourth fruit attainer, has perfect Sila, Samadhi and Panya. In other words, the Arahant, the fourth fruit attainer, has perfected the Aryan Eightfold Path. whereas the others have not perfected the Aryan Eightfold Path. So, from this sutta, you notice that the Anagamin as well as the Arahant, third and fourth fruit, Ariya, they have perfect Samadhi. And perfect Samadhi in the suttas means the 4 jhanas, the 4 rupa jhanas. The 4 form absorptions. The mind becomes one pointed on a form, which is a form object. And this 4th jhana is very hard to attain. It's a very high state. When a person attains the 4th jhana, the breathing stops. The mind becomes so peaceful, the body becomes so peaceful that the breathing stops. You might think that person is dead because the breathing has stopped. And then for some people, when they have attained the 4th jhana, psychic powers come. Psychic powers come naturally. So that is the 3rd and the 4th fruit. The 1st and the 2nd fruit, Ariya, they have perfect sila, Aryan sila. And the difference between these two, it is said that the 2nd fruition, Ariya, the Sakadagamin, has reduced greed, hatred and delusion. It is also said in the Sutta, Sangyutta Nikaya 55.40, that the Sotapanna does not have jhana. To become a Sotapanna, first fruit Ariya, you don't need jhana. But nowadays there are some monks that say to become a Sotapanna, you need jhana. And that contradicts the suttas. That's why the Buddha said, in the future, there will be famous monks who have wrong views. That's why the Buddha warned, I don't rely on later famous monks. Rely on the Buddha only. When the Buddha was about to enter Parinibbana, he was asked by Venerable Ananda, Bhagava, after you have gone, whom should we take as our teacher? Because the monks thought that the Buddha will appoint a certain monk to take over the leadership of the Sangha. But the Buddha said, after I am gone, take the Dhamma and Vinaya that I have taught to be your teacher. So nowadays that the Buddha is not with us, our real teacher is the Dhamma and Vinaya of the Buddha. But as I have mentioned, in Anguttara Nikaya 4.180, when the Buddha says Dhamma, it refers to his suttas, his original suttas, in the 5 Nikayas. So a Sotapanna does not have any jhana. But the Sakadagamin, because he has reduced greed, hatred and delusion, he has either 1 or 2 or 3 jhanas. Because jhana, when you attain jhanas, the hindrances are lowered. There are 5 things called hindrances: sensual desire, ill will or anger, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. These 5 things give us mental suffering. Sometimes you see the newspapers, an old man is so troubled by sensual desire that he rapes the granddaughter or the daughter. And some people's anger is so strong that in an argument they kill somebody. So these hindrances give us a lot of mental suffering. And they are related to greed, hatred and delusion. Greed is related to sensual desire. Hatred is related to the second hindrance, which is ill will or anger. So when you reduce the hindrances, it means you have attained some samadhi. So the Sakadagamin requires either the 1 or 2 or 3 jhanas. Whereas the Sotapanna, the first fruit Ariya, does not require any jhana. Now to attain jhana is difficult. Even for monks and nuns it's difficult. So for lay people it's even more difficult. Why? Because in the suttas, for example, Digha Nikaya, Sutta number 2, the Buddha said, when a monk enters the first jhana, the Buddha said, secluded or aloof from sensual desires, secluded from unwholesome states, a monk enters and abides in the first jhana. So to enter and abide in the first jhana, first you have to be secluded from sensual desires, aloof from sensual desires. That means you don't have sensual desires. You don't have unwholesome states. Then only you can enter the first jhana and abide in the first jhana. Now these jhanas are called Uttari Manusa Dhamma, superhuman states. They are not normal states. It's very hard to achieve. That's why the Buddha calls them superhuman states. So to tell you that it's difficult to achieve. But nowadays, there are some monks give out jhanas very easily. You go for a retreat, then they say you attain 4 jhanas, 8 jhanas and all that. That's not what the Buddha says. Because nowadays the jhanas are sometimes not the sutta jhanas. They might be Visuddhi Magga jhanas. So it's very important to stick to the suttas. So as mentioned here, it's difficult for lay people to attain the jhanas. Because to be aloof from sensual desires, you have to give up sensual desires, For a lay person, that's very difficult, isn't it? And to get rid of unwholesome states. Not so easy to get rid of unwholesome states. It takes a lot of effort over a period of time. You practice a spiritual path, after a long time only, you can get rid of unwholesome states. So, for lay persons to become an Ariya, the easiest is the lower stage, the first path and the first fruit. So if you attain the first path, they are called as said to have attained stream entry. And when you attain the first fruit, you are said to have attained the fruit of stream entry, also called as Sotapanna. So lay persons should only aim for this Sotapanna stage. If you can attain stream entry, it's a big deal, It's not easy to attain stream entry, and it's priceless. If you attain stream entry, better than winning several million ringgit or becoming the richest man in the world. All that, the Buddha said, cannot compare. You better turn off your handphone. So the Buddha said, even if you become the richest man in the world, life is short. Around 70-something years old, you will pass away. Cannot prolong your life much more than that. That's why the Bible says, the Christian Bible, what does it benefit a man if he wins the whole world but suffers the loss of his own soul? What's the point? Gain the whole world. In the end, when you go off for rebirth, you go and suffer. So a lot of people are very short-sighted. You only see this life. You don't see beyond this life. But beyond this life is very long. So you should look further. You should be far-sighted. You should plan. Don't wait until you are dying, then you start regretting. Some people think, wait until I'm old. Now I want to enjoy life when I'm young. But you never know when you suddenly get cancer. So, lay persons should plan to get stream entry. Once you get stream entry, then you are safe from the 3 woeful planes. You will never be reborn as a ghost animal or go to hell. Now what is the condition for getting stream entry? The lowest Ariya. According to the suttas, the condition is right view. There are several suttas that says once you attain right view or vision of the Dhamma, Dhammacakku, the suffering that is left is very little. If you have not attained this right view, your suffering is a lot. Why? Because samsara is very long. And in the long round of rebirths, you'll be reborn into 3 woeful planes many times, countless times. So, getting right view or vision of the Dhamma means understanding the 4 Aryan truths, understanding the Buddha's Dhamma, understanding that life is impermanent, and because it is impermanent, it gives us suffering. And why it gives us suffering? Because we attach to pleasant things. We don't like suffering, we don't like unpleasant feelings. We like to see the feel-good channel, So, how to get right view or vision of the Dhamma It's explained in Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta 43. There it is said there are two main conditions for attaining right view. One is the voice of another. The second condition is yoniso manasikara. I will explain these two. The voice of another means somebody else teaching you the true Dhamma. In other words, if you practice by yourself and you don't hear the true Dhamma, you can never become an Ariya. Before the Buddha started preaching the true Dhamma in India, there were a lot of yogis around. They practiced their whole life, they sacrificed their whole life in ascetic practices and various types of practices. And some of them meditated so hard until they achieved psychic powers. Yet, you could not find one Ariya at that time, in spite of all their effort. But once the Buddha started preaching the Dhamma, the Buddha said at one time 80,000 people attained stream entry, just listening to his Dhamma the first time. Another time 120,000 people attained stream entry, just listening to his Dhamma the first time also. And they were not scientists or engineers or lawyers or doctors, professors, etc. They're simply lawa I, lawa amma, lawa kong, ordinary folks. So it's very important that you listen to the true Dhamma. And what is the true Dhamma? A lot of people said, how can there be fake Dhamma? That's because they didn't listen to the suttas. In the Samyutta Nikaya 16.13, the Buddha was talking to Mahakassapa, the Arahant. The Buddha said, the true Dhamma will not disappear as long as fake Dhamma has not arisen in the world. But when fake Dhamma has arisen in the world, then the true Dhamma will slowly disappear. And the Buddha said the reason is that when fake Dhamma arises, then it's very hard to tell the difference between true Dhamma and fake Dhamma. And the Buddha said, just like gold, the Buddha said, now you only have pure gold. You know, that for sure it's real gold. But a time will come, the Buddha said, when people will make fake gold. When people make fake gold, then it's very hard to tell the difference between real gold and fake gold. So the Buddha did mention that there is such a thing as fake Dhamma. Also, the Buddha said in the Anguttara Nikaya 8.51 that his true Dhamma will last 500 years. Meaning that after 500 years after the Buddha's passing away, fake Dhamma will appear. So you can see exactly 500 years after the Buddha's passing away, a lot of new books started to appear. So within the 500 years after the Buddha's passing away, you still have true Dhamma. So we want to know within this 500 years after the Buddha's passing away, what was the Dhamma then? Luckily we have Emperor Asoka, who lived about 250 years after the Buddha's passing away. And he has so much faith in the Buddha that he asked the workers to put stone pillars by the roadside. Maybe every 1 kilometer or so, they will put a stone pillar maybe about 3 feet diameter, and on it will carve the words of the Buddha. These are called Asoka pillars. Now after over 2,000 years, they have dug up these pillars in India, and they confirm that during Emperor Asoka's time, the Dhamma only consisted of 5 Nikayas, 5 collections of the Buddha's discourses. Digha Nikaya, long discourses. Majjhima Nikaya, medium-length discourses. Samyutta Nikaya, topically grouped discourses. Anguttara Nikaya, numerically arranged discourses. And Khuddaka Nikaya, minor collection of discourses. So this is the original suttas of the Buddha. And as I mentioned just now also, Anguttara Nikaya 4.180, the Buddha said his true Dhamma is only found in the suttas. Also in Digha Nikaya, Sutta 29, the Buddha said his teachings in these suttas are perfect and complete. If it's perfect and complete, you cannot make it more perfect. You cannot make it more complete. In other words, our Buddha is the number one, first class of Buddha in the world. You cannot find another Buddha that surpasses our Buddha Gautama in his teaching. At the most, other Buddhas can only equal our Buddha Gautama, because our Buddha Gautama said his teachings are perfect and complete. He also said in this sutta that if you want to add to his words, you don't see his Dhamma. If you don't see his Dhamma, it means you don't have the vision of the Dhamma. You don't have right view. Which means those monks who wrote the later books, they are not Ariya. They don't see the Dhamma, means they don't appreciate that our Buddha's teachings in the suttas are perfect and complete. You don't need to add anymore. That's why you find some of the later books, they say some things that the Buddha never said. Both in Mahayana and Theravada now, teachings are polluted. So you must rely only on the early suttas in the 5 Nikaya.